everybody else. Why am I? First of all, you be everybody in Atlanta and everybody knows it.
I'm not going to talk to him like that.
But I am. And what are you going to do?
Not only was there mayhem on the last day of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta's production, but everything the cast, staff, and fans believed they knew about the show was completely revealed. Instead, it deteriorated into what many are now referring to as the most tumultuous, emotionally devastating, and career-defining event in the franchise's history. It was meant to be a wrap-up party, a final bow on a season full of drama, confessions, tears, and unresolved tension under the stage tension. The cast was supposed to smile, the cameras were rolling, and the crew was ready for a high-energy close-out. However, underneath those smiles were weeks, months, or even years of suppressed frustration, personal betrayals, unresolved conflicts, and bruised egos that were ready to blow up. Mendeecees, Harris, and Kirk Frost, two guys whose relationship had been strained for months due to off-camera friction and a season's worth of microaggressions, started it all with an apparently innocuous conversation. Nobody anticipated that a few remarks would start a firestorm. However, under extreme emotional strain, Mendeecees criticized Kirk's parenting, insinuating that there were unresolved family difficulties. Kirk, who was already fuming over his own concerns, answered with a vicious jab at Mendeecees' previous legal issues, suggesting that he had no right to pass judgment on anyone. At that point, the mood changed from uneasy to hazardous. Visibly shaking with anger, Mendeecees sprang at Kirk, pushing him hard enough to knock him back. There were gasps. Every millisecond was recorded by the cameras. There was a momentary silence in the room, but it was followed by a barrage of physical altercations and emotional outbursts. Mendeecees' wife, Yandy Smith, rushed in and begged her husband to stop, yelling that this was not the right time or location, but he was not paying attention. The anger was now in control, never one to back down from a fight. Kirk squared up, yelling taunts, his voice breaking with excitement. Rasheeda intervened in an attempt to defuse the situation, screaming at Kirk to stop acting out. However, Kirk retaliated by yelling, "Don't tell me what to do," which shocked even the staff, who had witnessed a lot of drama over the years. The verbal abuse turned into a full-fledged fight. The chairs were turned over. One of the prop tables was broken, a mirror fell with a thud. Camera gear was broken, lights went out, and producers froze as the chaos grew out of control and beyond their wildest expectations. Usually the comic relief, young Jock attempted to mediate, but Mendeecees pushed him away and said, "This has nothing to do with you." As he put his hands on Kirk and Mendeecees in a last-ditch effort to quell the rage, panic now spread like wildfire. Around the set, the franchise's creator and reality TV queen, Mona Scott Young, was present and saw the destruction for herself. She allegedly ran onto the stage and yelled for order at both the staff and the actors, but it was too late. "Come together, we didn't plan for this," she cried. However, the harm had already spread, the cast was shattered, the set was destroyed, and the energy was irrevocably changed. What was supposed to be a farewell bow turned into a funeral for the unity of the program. As security arrived, they struggled to separate the men. While Kirk stood in a wreckage, breathing heavily, his face crimson, his eyes glazed over, a man at his emotional limit, Mendeecees was carried off the stage. Still yelling, still furious, uncertain whether her marriage could withstand this tempest, Yandy sat down on a broken stool on stage and wiped away silent tears with shaking hands. This was supposed to be a celebration, Rasheeda said to herself as she left by herself. What on earth took place? Then the tumult dissolved into numb silence as abruptly as it had risen. The cast, crew, and producers were all in disbelief. The internet then took over. Official and leaked videos of the altercation started making the rounds on fan forums, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Do you guys see that fight? It wasn't staged. One fan said that was real love and hip-hop has officially gone to 4, another person stated. All of a sudden, people started asking if the reunion special would still air. Would the show be able to bounce back? Would anyone return at all? Some cast members were reportedly unwilling to return, according to insiders. One unnamed source said, "This environment is toxic. I'm tired of being taken advantage of." A producer was said to have heard Mendeecees say, "I came here to show my family's growth. This isn't it. This is mistreatment." Yandy, who was clearly frightened, also told Appel that she wasn't sure how long she could maintain her sanity, profession, and public persona. She asserted, "We are more than just characters. We are human. We're also breaking." Kirk, who was formerly the pillar of love and hip-hop, descended into emotional instability and disobedience. He screamed at the crew, saying that everyone was against him and that he was being set up. In a flash of passion, he smashed a glass prop and proclaimed, "I'm not their puppet." Rasheeda, on the other hand, was inconsolable. She sobbed in her dressing room backstage, "I can no longer do this. I am simultaneously losing myself and my spouse." Her voice was hoarse and her eyes were puffy. She was now disintegrating in real time rather than only performing for the cameras. Once the playful glue that kept the cast together, young Jock now sat quietly. "This is no longer enjoyable," he muttered to a producer. "Just for a tick, we're breaking each other on camera." Stunned, the producers convened secret emergency meetings. Some proposed calling off the reunion entirely, while others proposed bringing in mediators. Others were afraid they had finally overreached themselves. "This is trauma, not entertainment anymore," a crew member muttered. The attempt at mediation, when the cast was finally assembled, was a colossal failure. Kirk yelled at the counselor that he was being held responsible for everything. "A villain is what they want. Here I am," he cried out. Mendeecees remained silent and sat with their arms folded. Even Yandy's palm felt cold as she touched it. Rasheeda failed not appear. Jock departed early. The DNA of the show was breaking down. Online fans engaged in heated debate, with some accusing the network, others the producers, and many the cast for having forgotten why they were here in the first place. "This show used to be about growth and hustle," a longtime viewer tweeted. "It's just more now. They need therapy, not cameras," wrote another enthusiast. The foundation of love and hip-hop became more and more fractured with each hour that went by. According to reports, Mona Scott stated in a private meeting, "We either fix this or it's over for a period." Even she, though, wasn't sure how. The cast members, who were hurt, resentful, and worn out, started to quietly leave the set. Kirk became quite quiet. Rasheeda was spotted carrying her bags out of the studio. Yandy and Mendeecees were seen fighting in the parking lot. Jock wrote, "Pray for us," in a mysterious Instagram story. Formally, the conclusion was never finished. They left the set in the middle of the scene. The reunion episode was given an indefinite postponement. The franchise's future was in jeopardy. What started out as a revolutionary series about love, loyalty, and legacy has devolved into a boiling pot of treachery, emotional devastation, and irreparable harm. The group left the scene as the last lights went down and the cameras were turned off for the last time, not as celebrities, but as survivors of a reality TV battleground gone too far. Fans are now forced to wonder, will love and hip-hop as we know it end, or the start of something more sinister?